Everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. So last Friday, the New York Times was the first to report about two FBI informants within the ranks of the Proud Boys. And these people took part in the attack on the US Capitol on January 6th. So here's the deal. According to confidential documents, one member of the Proud Bigots, which is what I prefer to call them, he was texting with his FBI handlers on January 6th prior to and during the attack, basically giving a play-by-play of the action. And the second informant actually took part in trashing the building. So there are a couple of narratives now being spun based on this information that was just put out. One is that this wasn't a planned attack. They're saying this wasn't a conspiracy, which is one of what the charges were levied against numerous Proud Bigot members. And people are saying, no, they just got caught up. They got swept up in the energy of the crowd. They just went along with a mob mentality because apparently the first informant that I mentioned told the FBI after January 6th that this wasn't pre-planned. The second narrative, however, that's being seized upon by the right, of course, is that this was staged by the FBI, that they use these informants to stage this whole attack, that this wasn't real, that they're the whole, they worked with the FBI to plot the whole thing, and they egged others on basically to entrap these people, because, adults can just be forced into beating officers with all kinds of objects, right? So, and they must have been at their homes in advance too, to get them to bring all the bear spray and the weapons and everything else. But I digress. So the documents make clear that the informants went to DC and they took whatever actions they took of their own free will. They weren't even asked to go. The FBI didn't tell them to go. They just went. They weren't asked to, they weren't coerced into doing anything. In fact, they say that parts of these documents indicate that the FBI handler was a little slow on the uptake, that the handler didn't quite understand how quickly everything was escalating and how serious the situation had become. And I have to tell you, after literally reading hundreds of affidavits, indictments, and superseding indictments, and watching just about every video that took place that day or was recorded that day, I have some questions and I have some very strong opinions. I know you guys are shocked to hear that. So some of the questions I have are these. So first of all, who was this informant? Was he just some member of the Proud Boys, or did he hold a leadership position in the organization? Because if he was just some low-level member, he may not have been privy to plans prior to that day. Remember, there was allegedly chatter on some of their encrypted messaging groups, or in some of their encrypted messaging groups, about communication being monitored, and that they had been burned and they were being watched. So they created new private groups. And if I remember correctly, some of those groups were strictly for Proud Bigot leaders. And then there was also messages saying things like the cops are our biggest threat that day, or something to that effect. Why? Why are the cops your biggest enemy or your biggest threat if you're not planning anything? And then they also told Proud Bigot members not to wear their signature black and yellow colors. And they wanted to blend in with the crowd. That's something I shared with you guys. There was a report that came out even before January 6th, and it was 100% accurate. So why? Why did they want to blend in? Why were they trying to hide their identity if they had no nefarious activities planned? If they weren't planning to do anything wrong, why do you need to hide your identity? And then there was also a video that was shot right before everybody started breaking down the barricades and attacking the Capitol, in which a Proud Bigots member, his name is Daniel Scott, and he goes by the nickname of Milkshake. He was heard and seen on video, and he yelled, quote, "Let's take the fucking Capitol." And then other Proud Boy members were yelling at him, telling him, hey, don't yell that. We don't want people hearing that. And then they called him an idiot. He's not a leader, but yet he's calling to take the Capitol. He must have gotten that idea somewhere. And why did former Proud Bigots chairman Enrique Tarrio carry 2 high-capacity magazines into the Capitol the day before the attack? He was arrested. As he came into the city, he was arrested for that crime. And then he tried to say, I was just going to sell these. Someone was going to buy them from me, which is completely laughable. You bring 2 high-capacity magazines of ammunition with you on a trip to DC, where there's a rally going on, where violence ends up occurring, but you weren't planning for an attack. You weren't planning on some sort of violence. Sure. And then there was information in the affidavits about Proud Boy members allegedly splitting up and positioning themselves at various positions and at various entry points surrounding the Capitol, almost like they had a plan, right? And if that wasn't their intention that day, then what was their intention? What were they planning? Are we supposed to believe that, they just went there to peacefully protest? They were just going to walk around the outside of the building, chanting, holding their signs, holding their picket signs. Really? This is a group that is known for violent interactions, known for violent confrontations all over the place. I mean, hell, Canada just named the Proud Boys as a terrorist organization. They just deemed their group a terrorist organization. They start shit wherever they go. They did it in my home city, purposely crossing a street, getting in the faces of BLM protesters for no reason. There was no reason for them to be there, and shouting the most horrific things at them. For what purpose? If not to incite violence, for what purpose? I mean, seriously, these guys need therapy. I have never seen so many wounded, psychologically scarred, and scared little boys trapped inside the bodies of men. I'd actually feel sorry for them if they weren't so racist and repugnant. But anyway, I'm not buying that there wasn't some level of planning and agreement about what they wanted to see happen that day. It may not have been as explicit as what the Oath Keepers did, but you know what? I saw not a single one of them carrying a protest sign. If they're out there, send them to me, put them in the comments section or send them to me. I didn't see a single Proud Bigot carrying a sign of protest. You know what I did see a hell of a lot of? Almost all of them, or a large portion of them, were wearing tactical vests. That's called a clue. So we'll see how this plays out. The other thing that I should mention before I let you guys go is there was also another guy who was talked about recently that they were saying in the newspapers that was potentially an informant for the FBI, who is part of the Proud Bigots organization, Aaron Wallen something. It starts with another W, but I'm wondering if he is now one of these 2 other people, if this is the same guy that was talked about. I think it was maybe a month or 2 ago that they mentioned him. So I'll keep you guys all posted on this. As always, thank you so much for watching and listening. Take care. I'll talk with you soon.